On June 14, 1985, TWA Flight 847 prepared for a routine departure from Athens. The wide-bodied Boeing 727, destined for Rome, carried 145 passengers and 8 crew members. They represented a mix of nationalities, backgrounds, and dreams, all brought together by the promise of travel. Among them were vacationing families, seasoned businessmen, and young couples eager to explore the world. Excitement filled the cabin as the plane taxied down the runway. The passengers settled into their seats, unaware of the harrowing ordeal that awaited them. The sun shone brightly as the aircraft lifted off, piercing through the cabin windows and casting an illusion of tranquility. The familiar hum of the engines faded into the background as conversation sparked to life. Laughter and anticipation filled the air, momentarily drowning out the anxieties of the journey ahead. The passengers, lost in their thoughts and conversations, remained oblivious to the imminent danger lurking just moments away. Minutes after takeoff, the illusion of normalcy shattered. 2 men, later identified as members of Hezbollah, stormed into the aisle. They brandished weapons, their faces contorted in rage. The peaceful ambiance of the cabin evaporated, replaced by the chilling grip of terror. Passengers watched in disbelief, their minds struggling to comprehend the unfolding chaos.
Everyone, stay in your seats. Do not move.
One of the hijackers, armed with a hand grenade and a pistol, screamed demands at the terrified passengers. The other, wielding a 9mm pistol, forced his way into the cockpit.
Change course. We are going to Beirut.
The hijackers, fueled by a potent mix of ideology and hatred, had transformed a routine flight into a high-stakes international incident. The passengers, caught in the crosshairs of a conflict they barely understood, became pawns in a deadly game. The hijackers, speaking in Arabic and broken English, demanded the plane change course. Their destination, Beirut, Lebanon, a city already synonymous with violence and instability. The hijackers' motives remained unclear. Their actions, however, spoke volumes. They were on a mission, and the passengers and crew were now their hostages. The Boeing 727 touched down in Beirut International Airport under the watchful eyes of armed militants. The atmosphere crackled with tension. The passengers trapped inside the sweltering cabin felt a wave of relief wash over them, but it was a fleeting respite. Beirut, they soon realized, was not their final destination, but rather the first stop in a terrifying odyssey.
Please, everyone, stay calm. We will get through this together.
The hijackers, erratic and unpredictable, issued a flurry of demands. They wanted the release of hundreds of Lebanese Shiite Muslims held prisoner in Israel. Their threats escalated with each passing hour. They demanded fuel and threatened to start executing passengers if their demands weren't met. Fear hung heavy in the air, suffocating any flicker of hope that dared to emerge. After hours of tense negotiations and refueling, the hijackers forced the pilots to take off again. This time they charted a course westward towards Algiers, Algeria. The passengers, exhausted and terrified, clung to the slimmest threads of hope. Perhaps in Algiers they thought reason would prevail. Perhaps this nightmare would finally end.
Maybe, just maybe, this will all be over soon.
The plane landed in Algiers under the cover of darkness. The Algerian government, eager to avoid an international incident, agreed to refuel the plane. They also acted as intermediaries, trying to reason with the increasingly volatile hijackers. The passengers, caught in a diplomatic tug-of-war, watched the negotiations unfold with bated breath. Each passing moment felt like an eternity. Section 5. The Ultimate Price of Defiance. The hijackers, growing impatient with the slow pace of negotiations, made a chilling example of their ruthlessness. They singled out a young United States Navy diver, Robert Steth. Steth, a man who had dedicated his life to serving his country, became a pawn in a game he didn't understand. They dragged him to the front of the cabin, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. Gunshots rang out, echoing through the metal fuselage of the plane. Steth's lifeless body slumped to the floor, a stark reminder of the hijackers' brutality. The passengers, forced to witness the cold-blooded murder, were left reeling in horror and despair. Section 6. A Glimmer of Hope in the Darkness. The murder of Robert Steth sent shockwaves around the world. Governments scrambled to respond. The hijackers, now branded as cold-blooded killers, became the target of international condemnation. Amid the escalating tensions, a glimmer of hope emerged.
Negotiators, working tirelessly behind the scenes, managed to secure the release of some passengers. Women, children, and the elderly were allowed to disembark, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and survivor's guilt.
The releases, while a small victory, did little to ease the plight of the remaining hostages. They remained trapped on the plane, their fate hanging precariously in the balance. The world watched, holding its breath, as the drama continued to unfold. Section 7. Freedom's Uncertain Embrace. Days turned into nights. The air inside the plane grew thick with despair. The remaining hostages, physically and emotionally drained, clung to the hope of freedom. Finally, after 16 agonizing days, a breakthrough came. The hijackers, facing mounting international pressure, agreed to release the remaining hostages in exchange for safe passage to Beirut. On June 30, 1985, the ordeal came to an end. The hostages, their faces etched with exhaustion and relief, disembarked from the plane. They had survived a harrowing ordeal, forever marked by the trauma of their captivity. But their ordeal was far from over. The physical and emotional scars of their captivity would linger for years to come. Section 8. The Lingering Shadow of Terror. The hijacking of TWA Flight 847 left an indelible mark on the world. It exposed the vulnerability of international air travel to terrorism. It also highlighted the complex political and religious tensions that fueled such acts of violence. The hostages, once ordinary people leading ordinary lives, returned home forever changed. They carried with them the invisible scars of trauma, haunted by the memories of their ordeal. The hijacking also had a profound impact on the families of the victims. They struggled to come to terms with the loss of their loved ones, their grief compounded by the brutal nature of their deaths. The world mourned with them, offering condolences and support, but their pain remained raw and ever-present. Section 9. A New Era of Aviation Security. The hijacking of TWA Flight 847 forced the world to confront the growing threat of terrorism in the skies. It led to a dramatic overhaul of airport security measures worldwide. New screening procedures were implemented, including the use of metal detectors and X-ray machines. Increased security personnel were deployed at airports, their presence a constant reminder of the ever-present threat. The hijacking also led to the creation of the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, in the United States. The TSA, formed in the aftermath of the September 11 attacks, was tasked with protecting the nation's transportation systems and ensuring the safety of the traveling public. The legacy of TWA Flight 847 lived on in these enhanced security measures, a constant reminder of the human cost of complacency. Section 10. The Geopolitical Ripple Effect. The hijacking of TWA Flight 847 also had far-reaching geopolitical consequences. It strained relations between the United States and several Middle Eastern countries. It also exposed the complex web of alliances and rivalries that fueled the region's volatile political landscape. The incident underscored the growing threat of Hezbollah, the Shiite militant group that claimed responsibility for the hijacking. The world began to take notice of this new breed of terrorists, willing to use violence against innocent civilians to achieve their political goals. The hijacking also highlighted the role of state-sponsored terrorism. The hijackers, believed to have received support from Iran, exposed the willingness of some nations to use terrorism as a tool of foreign policy. The incident marked a turning point in the fight against terrorism, forcing the international community to confront a threat that knew no borders and respected no laws. Section 11. Remembering Flight 847. The hijacking of TWA Flight 847 remains a stark reminder of the human cost of hatred and intolerance. It serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of peace and the ever-present threat of terrorism. We remember the victims of this tragedy, their lives cut short by an act of senseless violence. We honor their memory by striving for a world where such acts of barbarism are consigned to the dustbin of history. We also remember the survivors, their resilience a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human will. They emerge from the crucible of captivity, forever marked by their ordeal, but determined to live their lives to the fullest. Their stories serve as a beacon of hope, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure.